The space station floated like a giant wheel against the backdrop of stars. Harmony 7 was the biggest neutral ground in the galaxy, where hundreds of different species came to talk, trade, and try not to start wars. Today was special. Today, humanity was joining the Galactic Coalition as an official member. Taman stood in the observation deck, his palms sweating inside his formal suit. He was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life forms. He was good at understanding cells and DNA, but terrible at understanding people. His supervisor had chosen him for this mission because he knew more about alien biology than anyone else on Earth. What his supervisor didn't know was that Taman had a bad habit of thinking out loud. The reception hall was enormous. Beings of every shape and size filled the space. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. Taman tried to memorize everything. His neural implant was recording data, but he wanted to remember this moment with his own mind. The human delegation, "Please approach," a voice announced through the translation system. Taman walked forward with the other human representatives. His heart pounded. Ambassador Park led the group, a confident woman who actually knew how to talk to people. Taman was just supposed to stand there and look professional. That's when he saw her. She stood with the Velxari delegation across the hall. The Velxari were known throughout the galaxy as warriors and diplomats. They valued honor above everything else. But Taman wasn't thinking about their culture. He was staring at her physical structure. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with a humanoid form that seemed designed for both grace and power. Her skin had a subtle shimmer, and along her arms and shoulders were plates of what looked like organic armor. They caught the light in fascinating ways. Her face was beautiful by human standards, but with slight differences that marked her as alien. Her eyes were larger, with an extra membrane that flickered when she blinked. Taman's scientist brain went into overdrive. Those plates weren't just armor. They were part of her skeletal system, grown through the skin. The way they connected suggested incredible flexibility combined with protection. The muscle structure underneath must be amazing. Her bone density had to be at least 3 times human normal to support that frame without breaking under the weight. "Incredible," he muttered. "The exoskeletal integration is perfect, and the way her muscular system connects to those plates. The tensile strength must be off the charts. Her whole body is basically a living weapon, but still maintains such elegant proportions. The hip structure alone could probably generate enough force to—" He stopped. The entire hall had gone silent. Everyone was staring at him. More specifically, everyone was staring at him, staring at the Velxari woman. His neural implant helpfully informed him that his muttering had been picked up by his communication badge. The universal translator had broadcast his observations to everyone in the room. Taman's face went red. He suddenly realized how his scientific analysis must have sounded through the translator. He'd been describing her body in detail in front of hundreds of diplomats and dignitaries. Ambassador Park's face had gone pale. The other human delegates looked horrified. Several alien species were making sounds that Taman's implant translated as shock or outrage. The Velxari delegation stood frozen. The warriors around the woman had their hands on their weapons. In Velxari culture, commenting on a warrior's body could be seen as a challenge or an insult. Taman had just committed what might be an unforgivable diplomatic incident on humanity's most important day. The woman herself stood perfectly still. Her large eyes were fixed on Taman. He couldn't read her expression. Was she angry, insulted, ready to challenge him to combat? Then she laughed. It wasn't a polite laugh or a mocking laugh. It was genuine, full of surprise and delight. The sound echoed through the silent hall like music. Her warriors looked at her in shock. Even her own people seemed confused. She stepped forward, moving with the predatory grace Taman had been analyzing moments before. Each step was purposeful, controlled. She crossed the space between them in seconds. Taman wanted to run. He wanted to apologize. He wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. Instead, he stood frozen as she approached. She stopped in front of him, towering over his average human height. Up close, he could see more details. Her eyes had flecks of gold in them. Her armor plates seemed to shift slightly with her breathing. "You are the human scientist, Taman?" she asked. Her voice was deeper than a human woman's, with a resonance that suggested her vocal cords were structured differently. Yes, Taman managed. "I am so sorry. I didn't mean to." She held up a hand, stopping him. "Your observations were accurate. My exoskeletal plates do integrate with my muscular system in the way you described. And yes, my people's bone density is approximately 3.2 times that of humans. Taman blinked. She wasn't angry. I am Yuna, she continued. I am a warrior diplomat of the Velxari Empire. In my culture, we value honesty above politeness. You spoke what you truly observed. There is no shame in truth, but Taman struggled to find words. I was describing your body in public. That's incredibly rude in human culture. Interesting, Yuna said, tilting her head. So humans hide their observations behind polite silence? Even when those observations are based on genuine curiosity and respect? Well, yes, usually. How do you ever learn anything about each other? Taman opened his mouth, then closed it. He'd never thought about it that way. Yuna turned to address the room. Her voice carried authority. My people find the human scientist's honesty refreshing. He looked at me and saw not a threat but a fascinating example of evolutionary adaptation. This is the kind of curiosity that builds bridges between species. She looked back at Taman. I request that this human be assigned as my cultural liaison. I wish to understand more about humanity, and perhaps he can learn about the Velxari without being so awkward about it. The tension in the room broke. Some beings made sounds that translated as laughter. Others seemed relieved that an interstellar incident had been avoided. Ambassador Park looked like she'd aged 10 years but was trying to smile. If that is acceptable to the human delegation, Yuna added, her eyes still on Taman. There was something in her gaze that he couldn't quite identify. Amusement? Interest? Challenge? Of course, Ambassador Park said quickly. We would be honored. Taman nodded, not trusting his voice. He'd come to the station to observe alien biology from a distance. Instead, he'd apparently just become a cultural ambassador to a race of warrior diplomats. And it had all started because he couldn't keep his thoughts to himself. As the ceremony continued, Yuna remained standing near the human delegation. Taman could feel her presence like a gravitational field. When he glanced at her, she was watching him with what looked like curiosity. Maybe, he thought, his bad habit had just turned into the most interesting opportunity of his life. Or maybe he'd just guaranteed his own humiliation on a galactic scale. Either way, it was too late to back out now. The next morning, Taman reported to the Cultural Exchange Office in the human sector of Harmony 7. He'd barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he replayed the moment his muttered observations had broadcast to the entire reception hall. His career as a respected scientist felt like it had ended before it truly began. The office was small but comfortable, designed to human preferences. Soft lighting, climate control set to Earth normal, and furniture that didn't try to accommodate 16 different body types. Taman was reviewing files on Velxari culture when the door chimed. Come in, he called, expecting his supervisor. Yuna had to duck slightly to enter through the human-sized doorway. She wore different clothing today, something less formal than yesterday's diplomatic armor. It looked like training gear, flexible but still incorporating some protective plating. She moved into the room with that same controlled grace, and Taman noticed she was careful not to knock over anything with her size. Good morning, Taman, she said. I am here for our first cultural exchange session. Oh. Taman stood quickly, nearly knocking over his chair. I didn't realize we were starting today. I should have realized. Of course we're starting today. That's why you're here, obviously, he was babbling. He forced himself to stop talking. Yuna tilted her head in that curious way she had. You are nervous, why? Because yesterday I insulted you in front of everyone in the galaxy? You did not insult me. You observed me with scientific interest. There is a difference in human culture, but I am not human, Yuna interrupted gently. This is why we must teach each other. In Velxari culture, your honesty was a gift. You showed me what you truly thought without hiding behind false words. That is rare even among my people. Taman sat back down slowly. So you really weren't offended? I was surprised, Yuna admitted. She pulled a chair away from the wall and sat, the furniture creaking under her weight. Most species look at Velxari warriors and see only weapons. You looked at me and saw the engineering of my biology. You appreciated the complexity. That is not offensive. That is seeing me as I am. Huh. Taman felt some of his anxiety fade. I never thought of it that way. This is why we must learn from each other, Yuna said. The Coalition wants me to understand humanity better. You accidentally showed me something important yesterday. Humans think deeply about things but often hide those thoughts. Why? Taman considered the question. No one had ever asked him to explain human nature before. We hide thoughts to avoid hurting feelings, or to maintain social harmony. Saying everything you think can cause conflicts. But hiding thoughts also prevents understanding, Yuna pointed out. How do you solve this? We don't always. Sometimes we misunderstand each other for years. Yuna made a sound that Taman's implant translated as sympathy. That sounds lonely, it was. Taman realized he'd never put it into words before, but it was. He'd spent most of his life studying alone, avoiding social situations because he was bad at the unspoken rules. Maybe that's why he'd gone into xenobiology. Aliens were supposed to be confusing. With humans, he was supposed to already know what to do. Tell me about Velksari culture, Taman said, changing the subject. I've read the basic files, but they're just data. What's it really like? Yuna's eyes seemed to brighten. We are warriors, but not because we love fighting. We are warriors because we value strength, and strength requires discipline. Every Velksari trains from childhood to master their body and mind. Is that how you got so... Taman caught himself before saying something awkward again. So skilled? Yes, I have trained for 20 cycles. In your years, that is about 17 years. You've been training since you were a child? All Velksari do. But we do not only train for combat. We train for diplomacy, art, philosophy. A true warrior must be complete. Taman pulled up his data tablet. Can I ask about your physiology? For scientific purposes? Yuna laughed that same genuine laugh from yesterday. You may ask. I find your curiosity honest. Your exoskeletal plates. Can you control them? Yes and no. They are part of my skeleton, so they move with me. But I can trigger a stress response that makes them denser and larger. She held out her arm. Watch. The plates on her forearm seemed to shift. They grew slightly thicker, the edges becoming more pronounced. The shimmer in her skin intensified. Taman leaned closer without thinking, fascinated. That's incredible. The cellular response time must be nearly instantaneous. And the energy cost is significant, Yuna finished. I cannot maintain it for long. It is for moments of true danger. But the biological engineering required to evolve that trait. Taman was taking notes rapidly. Your species must have faced serious evolutionary pressure. We did. Yuna's voice became quieter. My world has predators that make your Earth's extinct dinosaurs look small. We evolved to survive them. Now we use that evolution to survive in space. They talked for hours. Taman asked questions about Velksari biology, culture, and history. Yuna asked questions about human emotions, families, and why humans seem to value things like music and art so highly when they didn't help with survival. Because they help us feel alive, Taman explained. Survival isn't enough for humans. We need meaning. Velksari have meaning through honor, Yuna said. But I think I understand. Your species finds meaning through creation and connection. Yes, exactly. The door chimed again. This time it was Ambassador Park. She looked between Taman and Yuna with surprise. The session was scheduled for 1 hour. It's been 4 hours. Taman checked his chronometer. She was right. I'm sorry. We got caught up in cultural exchange, Yuna finished. This human is an excellent teacher. I request that our sessions continue daily. Ambassador Park smiled. Of course. I'm glad this partnership is working well. After Yuna left, the ambassador pulled Taman aside. You've impressed her. The Velksari ambassador contacted me this morning. Yuna apparently told her entire delegation that you were the most honest human she'd ever met. Is that good? In Velksari culture? That's the highest compliment possible. Keep doing whatever you're doing. Over the next weeks, Taman and Yuna met daily. They explored each other's cultures, traded knowledge, and slowly became friends. Yuna taught Taman about Velksari meditation and combat philosophy. Taman introduced Yuna to human music, which she found fascinating. Your species makes sound patterns for emotional expression, she said, listening to a classical symphony. This is not efficient communication. That's not the point. Does it make you feel anything? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. Yes, it makes me feel vast, like space itself has a voice. Then it's working. Other species on the station began to notice their unusual friendship. A human and a Velksari warrior spending hours together daily was strange. But it was working. Through their partnership, both species were learning, and Taman was learning something else. Every day he looked forward to seeing Yuna. Not just as a research subject or a diplomatic contact, but as a person. She challenged his assumptions, made him laugh, and treated his awkwardness with kindness rather than judgment. He was careful not to think too hard about what that meant. But late at night, alone in his quarters, he couldn't help wondering if she felt the same way. The emergency alert woke Taman from a deep sleep. His neural implant flashed urgent red warnings across his vision before he was fully conscious. He stumbled out of bed, pulling on clothes while trying to read the incoming messages. A colony had been attacked. No survivors. He made it to the briefing room in 10 minutes. The space was crowded with coalition officers, diplomats, and military personnel from a dozen species. Yuna was already there, wearing her full combat armor now. She looked different in war gear. More dangerous. More like the warrior her culture had trained her to be. "Taman," she called, waving him over. "Stand with me." He squeezed through the crowd to her side. She'd saved him a spot where he could actually see the display screens. Admiral Chen, a human military officer, began the briefing. 16 hours ago, we lost contact with Colony Outpost Meridian 3. When our patrol arrived, they found this. The screen showed images that made Taman's stomach turn. The colony was gone. Not just destroyed, but erased. Buildings stood empty. Equipment was intact. But every living thing had vanished. No bodies? Someone asked. None. No blood, no signs of struggle. It's as if every colonist simply disappeared. Admiral Chen changed the image. But our sensors detected these. Strange energy signatures pulsed across the screen in patterns Taman didn't recognize. They looked almost biological, but the readings were wrong for any known life form. What made those marks? Yuna asked. We don't know. But 3 hours ago, a Velksari mining station reported a similar attack. Same result. Everyone gone, these same energy signatures left behind. The room erupted in concerned voices. An attack on both human and Velksari sites meant this wasn't a species-specific threat. It was targeting everyone. The coalition is forming an emergency task force, Admiral Chen continued. We need scientists, warriors, and diplomats. We need people who can work together across species lines. His eyes found Taman and Yuna. I'm told you two have been successful in that regard. Taman felt his heart race. He was a researcher, not a soldier. I'm not qualified for... You understand alien biology better than anyone available, Dias, the Admiral interrupted. Whatever took those colonists, we need someone who can analyze it. Are you willing? Taman looked at Yuna. She was watching him with those large golden-flecked eyes. She gave a small nod. Not pushing him, just showing she'd be there. Yes, Taman said. I'm willing. They were assigned to the exploration vessel Dawn's Edge, a coalition ship designed for long-range missions. The ship was sleek and powerful, bristling with sensors and weapons. Taman had never been on a military vessel before. Everything was efficient, precise, and slightly intimidating. The captain was a human named Deho. He was older, maybe 50, with gray in his hair and scars on his hands that suggested a rough life. He looked at Yuna with obvious distrust. I've worked with Velksari before, Deho said when they met. They're good in a fight, but this is my ship. You follow my orders, understand? I understand chain of command, Yuna replied calmly. I will follow your orders unless they compromise the mission. They won't, Deho said flatly. The rest of the crew was small. Minji, a young human engineer who seemed too cheerful for the situation, and Hyunwoo, a Velksari tactical officer who was even taller than Yuna. He looked at Taman like he was looking at an insect. We're trusting a human scientist? Hyunwoo asked Yuna in their native language. Taman's translator converted it automatically. Yes, Yuna said. He is brilliant and honest. Two qualities we need. He is weak. When danger comes, he will fail. Then I will protect him. Taman pretended not to hear the conversation, but his face felt hot. Hyunwoo wasn't wrong. Compared to Velksari warriors, he was weak. He couldn't fight, couldn't survive harsh environments, couldn't do much except think and analyze. The Dawn's Edge launched toward the last known coordinates of the disappeared colonists. The first day was quiet. Too quiet. Taman spent most of his time in the lab, reviewing data from both attack sites, trying to find patterns. Yuna visited him in the evening. You are worried, she observed. I don't belong here. I'm not a soldier or an explorer. I'm just a scientist who talks too much. Yuna sat down across from him. In the small lab, she seemed even larger. Do you know why Velksari value warriors so highly? Because warriors protect your people? No, because warriors are willing to face danger for others. You agreed to come on this mission knowing you might be in danger. That makes you a warrior, Taemin, even if you do not carry weapons. He smiled weakly. I think Hyunwoo would disagree. Hyunwoo values only physical strength. He has not learned what you teach, that there are many kinds of strength. Before Taemin could respond, alarms blared through the ship. He and Yuna ran to the bridge. Contact! Minji called from the engineering station. Multiple objects approaching. They're not on any coalition registry. The view screen showed them. Dozens of small craft, if they could be called craft. They looked organic, like metal insects. They moved in perfect coordination surrounding the Dawn's edge. Battle stations, Deho ordered. All crew to positions. One of the objects broke formation and accelerated toward them. Taemin's breath caught. On the sensor screen, he could see it clearly. The energy signature matched exactly what they'd found at the attack sites. It's them, he said. Whatever attacked the colonies, fire! Deho commanded. The Dawn's edge weapons blazed. The first object exploded in a flash of strange light. But 3 more immediately took its place. They're adapting, Minji shouted. Energy shields compensating for our weapons. How is that possible? Hyunwoo demanded. Taemin was already running calculations. They're learning from each hit. Biomechanical systems that evolve in real time. We need to change our attack pattern every shot. Can't do that, Minji said. Takes too long to recalibrate. The objects were getting closer. On the screen, Taemin could see details now. They really did look organic, with metal plating that shifted and moved. Like technology and biology had merged. Random frequency burst, Taemin said suddenly. Don't try to target them. Just flood the space with different energy types all at once. They can't adapt to chaos. Deho looked at him. That's never been tested. Do you have a better idea? For a moment, Taemin thought the captain would refuse. Then Deho turned to Minji. Do it. Everything we have. The Dawn's edge weapons fired in a cascade of different energies. Lasers, plasma, kinetic rounds, everything. The objects tried to adapt but couldn't keep up with the random assault. One by one they exploded. The last one retreated, accelerating away at impossible speed. Should we pursue? Hyunwoo asked. No, Deho said. Let it go. We need to report this. The bridge was silent except for the beeping of systems resetting. Everyone was staring at Taemin. Good thinking, Deho finally said. Maybe you do belong here after all. Taemin felt Yuna's hand on his shoulder. Gentle, despite her strength. I told you, she said quietly. Many kinds of strength. But as Taemin looked at the retreating object on the sensors, he felt cold dread settle in his stomach. They'd survived this encounter. But whatever was out there, whatever was taking colonists and creating these biomechanical weapons, it was learning. And next time, it would be ready for them. Following the energy trail of the escaped object, the Dawn's edge traveled to the edge of mapped space. Out here, stars were sparse and stations were few. It was the kind of place where people went to hide or to hide things. Signal ahead, Minji announced from her station. It's old. Really old. Coalition frequency, but at least 50 years out of date. A research station? Taemin asked, moving closer to see her screens. Looks like it. But according to records, there's nothing out here. This sector was marked as empty space. Deho stood from the captain's chair. If it's broadcasting coalition signals, we investigate. But everyone stays sharp. The station came into view slowly. It was massive, built into a dead planet that drifted alone in the darkness. Parts of it looked abandoned, with sections exposed to space. But other parts still had power. Lights blinked in windows. Systems hummed with energy. That's not abandoned, Hyunwoo said. Someone is still using it. They docked at one of the functioning airlocks. Taemin suited up with the others, checking his environmental gear 3 times. Yuna helped him secure his helmet, her hands surprisingly gentle for someone so strong. Stay close to me, she said. If there is danger, I will protect you. You don't have to do that, I know. I choose to. The airlock opened into darkness. Their suit lights cut through the gloom, revealing corridors filled with dust and debris. Everything was old, covered in decades of neglect. But deeper in, they found sections that had been recently used. Equipment that looked new. Footprints in the dust. Split up, Deho ordered. 2 teams. Yuna, take Taemin to the research labs. Hyunwoo, Minji, with me to the control center. Taemin and Yuna moved through the abandoned station together. It felt wrong being here, like disturbing a grave. The research labs were at the station's core, protected behind multiple security doors that hung open. Inside, Taman found what he was looking for. Data terminals still powered, still holding information. He plugged his tablet in and began downloading files. "What are you finding?" Yuna asked, standing guard at the door. "Logs, experiment records. This place was a coalition facility, but it was classified. Top secret." He kept reading, his eyes widening. "Oh no, oh this is bad. What is it?" They were experimenting with genetic engineering, trying to combine DNA from different species to create hybrid soldiers. Super soldiers that would have the best traits of multiple races. Yuna moved closer. "That is forbidden." "The Coalition banned such experiments after the Unity Wars." "I know. But someone did it anyway." Taman pulled up more files. They tested it on volunteers at first, then on prisoners. The results were horrible. The subjects suffered, most died. The few that survived were... He struggled to find words. Unstable, aggressive. They had to be contained. Where are they now? The project was shut down 50 years ago. Everything was supposed to be destroyed. The facility abandoned. But an alarm blared through the station. Deho's voice crackled over the communication system. "We've got a problem. Someone's activated the station's defense systems. We're locked in the control center." "We're coming," Yuna replied. She grabbed Taman's arm. "Bring the data. We need to leave now." They ran through the corridors, but the station was waking up. Doors sealed behind them. Security systems tracked their movements. And somewhere in the darkness, something else was moving. They heard it before they saw it. Heavy footsteps. Breathing that sounded wrong. When it stepped into their light, Taman's blood went cold. It had been a person once. Maybe several people. Now it was a nightmare. Multiple limbs, each from a different species. Armor plates like Yuna's, but twisted and overgrown. Eyes that glowed with pain and madness. One of the failed experiments still alive after 50 years. "Run," Yuna said calmly. She stepped between Taman and the creature. "Run now. I'm not leaving you." "You have the data. It's more important than one warrior." She activated her exoskeletal plates, her body shifting into combat mode. "Go," Taman ran. Behind him, he heard the sounds of fighting. Metal on metal, Yuna's battle cry. The creature screaming. He wanted to go back to help her, but he knew he'd only be in the way. He found the others at the control center. Hyunwoo was forcing the doors open with raw strength while Minji worked on the security systems. "Where's Yuna?" Hyunwoo demanded, fighting. Something from the experiments. "We have to help her." Hyunwoo looked at him with contempt. "You left her? You abandoned your partner?" "She ordered me to run." "A warrior does not abandon their companions." Hyunwoo shoved past him, running back into the station. Taman felt shame burn through him. Hyunwoo was right. He'd run. He'd left Yuna to face danger alone. "The doors are open," Minji said. "We can get to the ship." "No," Taman said. "We wait for them." Minutes passed like hours. Then Hyunwoo emerged from the darkness carrying Yuna. She was injured, bleeding from cuts on her arms and side, but she was alive. Behind them, the creature lay dead in the corridor. They got back to the ship and sealed the airlock. Minji piloted them away from the station as fast as the engines could manage. In the medical bay, Taman worked on Yuna's injuries with shaking hands. "You are afraid," she observed, wincing as he cleaned a cut. "I thought you were going to die." "But I did not. I am a warrior. This is what we do. You shouldn't have to do it alone." Yuna caught his hand. "Taman, you did the right thing. The data you saved is more important than my life. That is strategy, not cowardice." But later, when they gathered to review the data, the mood was dark. The files revealed everything. The experiments, the failures, the decision to shut it down, and the final entry that made Taman's blood run cold. "The project wasn't destroyed," he read aloud. "It was moved. Continued in secret. And someone has reactivated it." "Who?" Deho demanded. "The file doesn't say. But whoever it is, they have access to Coalition resources. They're the ones behind the attacks. They're harvesting genetic material from different species to restart the hybrid program." Hyunwoo slammed his fist on the table. "This is a human conspiracy. Humans trying to create weapons to dominate other species." "That's not fair," Minji protested. "We don't know who..." "The facility was human-built. The project was human-led. And now humans are conveniently discovering it?" Hyunwoo turned to Yuna. "You trust them too much. This human," he pointed at Taman, "he showed his true nature today. When danger came, he ran." "I ordered him to run," Yuna said quietly, "and a true warrior would have refused." The words cut deep. Taman looked around the room. Deho wouldn't meet his eyes. Minji looked uncomfortable. Even Yuna seemed conflicted. Maybe you're right, Taman said quietly. I'm not a warrior. I'm not even brave. I ran when I should have stayed. But the data doesn't lie. This conspiracy involves multiple species. We need to work together to stop it. Easy for you to say, Hyunwoo shot back. While humans benefit from... Enough, Yuna said, standing despite her injuries. Taman is not responsible for the sins of others. He saved the data that will help us stop this. That is courage even if you cannot see it. But the damage was done. The crew was divided now. Humans on one side, Velksari on the other. Trust had been broken. And somewhere out there, whoever was behind the conspiracy was getting stronger. For 3 days, the Dawn's Edge traveled in tense silence. Humans ate in shifts separate from the Velksari. Deho barely spoke to Hyunwoo. The ship that had started as a symbol of cooperation now felt like a prison. Taman spent most of his time alone in the lab, analyzing the data they'd recovered. The more he learned, the worse it became. The conspiracy went deep into the coalition government. Multiple species were involved, not just humans, but that truth didn't heal the divide on the ship. Yuna visited him late one evening. Her injuries were healing fast. Velksari biology repairing damage that would take humans weeks to recover from. You are not eating, she observed. Not hungry. You are punishing yourself. For running. For surviving. Taman didn't answer. She was right. Yuna sat down beside him. I need to explain something about Velksari culture. Something I have not told you before. Okay. We choose life mates based on trust earned in battle. Not romantic words or careful courtship. We watch how someone acts when death is close. Do they protect others? Do they face fear with honor? Do they value duty over safety? Taman felt his heart beat faster. Why are you telling me this? Because you ordered me to run when the creature attacked. You valued my life over the data. You came back when you could have escaped. And even now, when my own people doubt you, you search for truth instead of revenge. She paused. These actions have meaning. Do you understand? He did, and he didn't. His mind was racing, trying to process what she was saying. Yuna, I'm not a warrior. I ran when you needed help. I'm not brave or strong or... You are those things. Just differently than Hyunwoo understands. She took his hand. Her palm was warm. The skin tougher than human, but gentle in its touch. Taman, I am choosing you. If you will have me. Every scientific part of Taman's brain shut down. All the analysis, all the logic, all of it disappeared. There was only this moment. This amazing, terrifying woman telling him something that sounded like, that's your biology talking, he said weakly. Your exoskeletal response to stress increases adrenaline, which can trigger bonding instincts that might seem like emotional attachment but are actually just... Yuna laughed. That same genuine laugh from the first day. Still analyzing. Still thinking. This is why I choose you. Before Taman could respond with another awkward scientific observation, the ship's alarms blared. They ran to the bridge. Minji was at the controls, her face pale. We found it. The source of the signal. It's huge. The view screen showed a massive structure hidden in an asteroid field. Part station, part ship, part something else entirely. It was bigger than any human-made structure Taman had ever seen, and it was crawling with those biomechanical drones. That's the Shadow Nexus, Deho said, reading the data. It's a mobile fortress. Coalition intelligence thought it was a myth. It's real, Taman said, staring at the screen. And that's where they're creating the hybrids. We need to report this, Hyunwoo said. Call for coalition reinforcements. By the time they arrive, that thing could jump to another location, Deho countered. We need intel now. You want to infiltrate it? With 5 people? You have a better idea? The crew looked at each other. Enemies hours ago, now facing the same impossible choice. I can hack their systems, Minji offered. If I can get to a terminal inside, I can download everything and maybe disrupt their operations. I can get you there, Hyunwoo said. If the human pilot can actually fly through that asteroid field. I can fly anywhere, Deho shot back. Then we have a plan, Yuna said. We infiltrate, gather data, and escape before they know we're there. And if we're caught? Taman asked. Everyone was quiet. Then we fight, Yuna said simply. Together. They prepared for the mission with careful coordination. Deho would pilot the Dawn's Edge through the asteroids, using them for cover. Minji, Hyunwoo, and Yuna would infiltrate the station. Taemin would coordinate from the ship, using his knowledge of the hybrid systems to guide them. Before they left, Yuna pulled Taemin aside. "If this goes wrong, I want you to run. Take the ship and escape. The data you have is too important to lose. I'm not running again. Taemin, you taught me about honor, about duty, about being a warrior even without weapons." He met her eyes. "I choose to stay. Whatever happens," she smiled. Not the formal smile of a diplomat or the fierce grin of a warrior. Something softer. "Then I suppose we succeed together or fail together. That's what you said about choosing me. Does that mean focus on the mission first?" she said. "We can discuss biology and emotions after we survive." The infiltration began at midnight station time. Daeho piloted them through the asteroid field with skill that even Hyunwoo couldn't criticize. They docked at a maintenance airlock far from the main areas. "In and out," Daeho reminded them. 15 minutes maximum. The infiltration team moved into the station. Taemin watched through their helmet cameras, his heart pounding. The corridors were clean, modern, nothing like the abandoned facility. This was active, maintained, and full of people, not people. Taemin realized with horror. The workers moving through the halls were hybrids, successful ones. They looked almost normal, but his trained eye caught the differences. Extra muscle mass, modified skeletal structure, enhanced sensory organs. These weren't the failures they'd found at the old station. These were working. "Minji, the terminal is 2 corridors ahead," Taemin guided. "But there are 3 guards. I see them," Hyunwoo said, preparing to engage. "Wait," Taemin said quickly. "Look at their equipment. Those aren't standard weapons. If they fire, they'll trigger the station alarms. Then how do we get past them?" Taemin thought fast. "The ventilation system. It's large enough for human-sized infiltration. You can bypass them entirely." They followed his guidance, moving through the infrastructure of the station. Taemin felt useful for the first time since they'd started this mission. His mind was working, solving puzzles, finding paths others couldn't see. They reached the terminal. Minji plugged in while Hyunwoo and Yuna stood guard. Data began flowing back to the ship. "Got it," Minji whispered. "All their research, all their records. This is everything we need to expose the conspiracy." "Good," Taemin said from the ship. "Now get out of there." "Wait," Yuna said. "There's something else here. A laboratory, with prisoners." "Your orders are to leave," Taemin reminded her. "I cannot leave prisoners. That is not honor," Hyunwoo nodded. "Agreed. We free them. That's not the plan," Taemin protested. But they were already moving. The laboratory doors opened to reveal horror. Dozens of beings in containment cells, all in various stages of genetic modification. Some were screaming. Some were barely conscious. All were suffering. "We cannot save them all," Hyunwoo said quietly. "Not with our ship." "We save who we can," Yuna replied. She started opening cells. That's when the alarms went off. "Contact," Daeho shouted from the ship. Multiple drones launching from the station. "We're under attack. Get back to the ship," Taemin ordered. "Now." But it was too late. Security doors slammed shut around the infiltration team. They were trapped. On the view screen, Taemin watched in horror as a figure appeared in the laboratory. Tall, elegant, wearing the robes of a coalition counselor. His species was Vothin, a race known for logic and cold calculation. "How interesting," the counselor said. "The Dawn's Edge, we've been waiting for you." The counselor walked slowly through the laboratory, observing Yuna, Hyunwoo, and Minji like they were specimens. Security drones surrounded them, weapons charged. Any movement would mean death. "I am Counselor Varen," he said in a calm voice. "I imagine you have questions." "You're behind the attacks," Yuna said. "You're creating these hybrids." "Creating? No, perfecting." Varen gestured to the prisoners in their cells. "The coalition is weak, divided. Each species hoards its advantages while fearing others. I am building a solution. A unified force combining the best traits of all species. By kidnapping and experimenting on innocent people?" Minji said angrily. "By ensuring galactic peace through strength." Voren's expression didn't change. "My people were nearly destroyed in the Unity Wars. We were too weak. Too specialized. If we had been stronger, faster, more adaptable, we would have survived without suffering." On the ship, Taemin listened while his mind raced. He had to find a way to help them. But what could he do from here? "You're insane," Hyunwoo said. The Coalition banned these experiments for good reason. The subjects suffer, most die. You're creating monsters, not soldiers. The early attempts were flawed, Voran admitted. But we've made progress. These subjects, he indicated the prisoners, represent my latest work. Once the process is complete, they will be stronger than any natural-born being. They will be living weapons that ensure no species can threaten another again. Weapons without will, Yuna said. I've seen your creations. They have no honor, no purpose, only pain. A temporary sacrifice for permanent peace, Deho's voice crackled in Taemin's ear. We've got problems out here too. About 50 drones and they're coordinating. I need those people back on the ship now or we're all dead. Taemin stared at the screens, trying to think. The team was trapped behind security doors. The ship was under attack, and Voran held all the advantages. Then he noticed something in the data Minji had downloaded. Schematics of the Shadow Nexus, including the power distribution system. Deho, Taemin said quickly. I'm sending you coordinates. Target these points with everything we have. That's the station's power grid. If we hit that, we'll trigger a cascade failure. Exactly. And when the power drops, those security doors will unlock. The team can escape, and we'll be defenseless against the drones. Not if we time it right. Fire on my mark. Trust me. Through the camera feed, Taemin watched Voran approach Yuna. You are Velksari. Your species is strong. Imagine if we enhanced you further. Gave you advantages of speed, intelligence, adaptability from other species. You would be unstoppable. I would be nothing, Yuna replied. Strength without purpose is not strength. It's just power. And power without honor is evil. Honor is a luxury the weak invented to feel better about their weakness. No, Yuna said. Honor is what makes strength meaningful, Voran sighed. Disappointing. I had hoped you would understand. He turned to his security forces. Place them in the modification chambers. They will serve the greater good whether they choose to or not. The drones moved forward. Hyunwoo and Yuna prepared to fight even though they were outnumbered. Now, Taemin shouted to Deho. The Dawn's Edge fired. Precision shots struck the power nodes Taemin had identified. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the lights in the station flickered and went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, but the security doors unlocked. Run! Yuna shouted to the others. They grabbed Minji and sprinted for the exit. Behind them, Voran was shouting orders. Drones activated their independent power sources, giving chase. I've got you on sensors, Deho said. But those drones are right behind you. Taemin watched the tactical display. The team was fast, but the drones were faster. They'd be caught before reaching the airlock, unless someone slowed them down. Hyunwoo, Taemin said over the communication system. Can you access the environmental controls from there? Why? Because I have an idea. But you'll have to stay behind. I'm listening, Taemin explained quickly. It was risky, probably suicidal. But it might give the others time to escape. Do it, Hyunwoo said. You'll die, Yuna protested. Come with us. No, this is my purpose, my honor. Hyunwoo looked at her through his helmet camera. I doubted the human. I was wrong. His strength is different from ours, but it is real. Protect him, Yuna. He sees things we cannot. Hyunwoo stayed at the terminal while the others ran. Following Taemin's instructions, he overloaded the atmospheric processors. The station's air began venting, creating a massive pressure differential that sucked the pursuing drones backward. They tumbled in the artificial wind, unable to maintain pursuit, but the same wind was pulling at Hyunwoo. His boots locked to the floor with magnetic grips, but it wouldn't hold forever. Go, he said calmly. I will hold them as long as I can. Yuna and Minji made it to the airlock. They sealed it behind them and ran for the ship. Taemin watched Hyunwoo on the screen. The Velksari warrior stood alone, holding position while drones fought against the wind to reach him. Thank you, Taemin said quietly. Thank you, human. You taught me that strength has many forms. Now go. Save the galaxy. The atmospheric pressure became too much. The terminal exploded in a shower of sparks. The screen went dark. Yuna and Minji reached the ship. Deho fired up the engines and they pulled away from the station. Drones pursued, but Taemin coordinated their escape with precision, guiding Deho through the asteroids while Yuna operated the weapons. They made it to clear space. Behind them, the Shadow Nexus was recovering power. But they'd escaped. With the data. With proof of the conspiracy. But the cost had been high. In the medical bay later, Yuna stood silently. Taemin found her there staring at nothing. Hyunwoo sacrificed himself because I told him to, Taemin said. That's my fault. No, he sacrificed himself because it was the right choice. That is warrior's honor. She turned to Taemin. You gave him purpose in his death. That is the greatest gift you could give. I don't feel like I gave him anything. I feel like I got him killed. Yuna took both his hands in hers. Listen to me. You are brave. You are strong. And you saved all of us with your mind and your courage. Hyunwoo died understanding that. He died with honor. She pulled him close. For a moment they just stood together, finding comfort in shared grief. We have to stop Voran, Taemin said finally. We have the data. We can expose him? Yes, but first we must survive long enough to deliver it. Because on the view screen they could see the Shadow Nexus powering up its weapons, and it was turning toward them. They'd escaped once. But Voran wasn't finished with them yet. The Dawn's Edge raced through space with the Shadow Nexus in pursuit. Daeho pushed the engines past safety limits while Minji worked frantically to keep them from exploding. We can't outrun them forever, Daeho said. That thing is faster and better armed. We need a plan. Taemin was in the lab reviewing the data they'd stolen. There had to be something useful here. Some weakness in Voran's designs. Some flaw in the hybrids. Then he found it. The hybrids are linked, he said over the communication system. They're all connected to a central control system on the Nexus. Voran maintains oversight of every modified subject. So if we destroy the control system? Yuna asked. They'll be free, but they'll also be unpredictable. Some might die. The genetic modifications aren't stable without constant monitoring. That's terrible, Minji said. We'd be killing them. Or we leave them as Voran's slaves, Taemin replied. There's no good choice here. Yuna appeared in the lab doorway. Can we broadcast the data? Send it to the Coalition before the Nexus destroys us? Already tried, Daeho called from the bridge. They're jamming our long-range communications. Then we need to get closer to Coalition space, Yuna said. Or find a way to destroy the Nexus. Taemin looked at the data again. An impossible idea was forming. What if we don't destroy it? What if we set the hybrids free? How? The control system is networked. If I can hack into it, I might be able to break Voran's control. Give the hybrids their own will back. That's crazy, Daeho said. You'd have to access their systems directly, which means boarding the Nexus again. I know. Everyone was quiet. They'd barely escaped the first time. Going back was suicide. I'll do it, Yuna said. If Taemin can guide me remotely. No, Taemin interrupted. It has to be me. I'm the only one who understands the systems well enough to hack them in real time. Then I go with you. Yuna. No argument. She smiled. You taught me about choosing to stay instead of run. Now I'm making the same choice. Daeho turned the ship around. This is the stupidest plan I've ever followed. Let's do it. They approached the Nexus from underneath, using the station's own bulk to hide from sensors. A small maintenance airlock gave them entry. Taemin and Yuna went alone, leaving Daeho and Minji to keep the ship ready for quick escape. Inside, they moved through service corridors. Taemin's hands shook as he navigated. This was real combat now, not just observation from safety. But Yuna was beside him, confident and calm. You are afraid, she observed. Terrified. Good. Fear means you understand the danger. Only fools feel no fear. They reached the control center. It was massive, filled with screens showing hundreds of hybrid subjects. Some in cells, some in training, all monitored and controlled. Taemin plugged into the system. Code flowed across his display. It was complex, protected, but he'd studied Voran's designs and the stolen data. He knew where the vulnerabilities were. Security is coming, Yuna warned. She stood at the door, ready to fight. I need 2 minutes. You have them. Drones poured into the corridor. Yuna fought like the warrior she was, her exoskeletal plates at full density, her movements precise and deadly. She held the doorway alone against a dozen enemies. Taemin's fingers flew across the keyboard. He was breaking through layers of security, finding the core control protocols. Just a little more. Taemin, Yuna called. I cannot hold them much longer. Almost there. One more firewall. One more encryption. And access granted. Taemin stared at the screen. He had complete control of every hybrid in Voran's army. He could shut them down, take control himself, or do what he'd planned. Set them free. His finger hovered over the command. Do it, Una said. She was bleeding from a dozen cuts now, still fighting. Give them their choice. Taman executed the command. Throughout the Shadow Nexus, hybrid subjects stopped moving. For a moment, the station was silent. Then one by one, they began to wake, not as controlled weapons, but as individuals. Confused, frightened, but free. Some ran, some collapsed. Some turned on their captors. And some came to help. The drones attacking Una suddenly found themselves fighting modified soldiers who no longer obeyed Voren's commands. The tide turned quickly. We need to go, Taman said. This whole station is going to tear itself apart. They ran through corridors full of chaos. Freed hybrids were taking control, smashing equipment, opening cells. It was a rebellion. Voren appeared in front of them, blocking their path. He looked furious. You've destroyed everything. Years of work ruined by sentimental fools. We freed them, Taman said. They're not your weapons. They're failures without my control. They'll die, and it's your fault. No, a voice said behind Voren. One of the hybrid subjects, a being that looked like it had traits from at least 4 species, stepped forward. We're not failures. We're survivors, and we choose freedom even if it's dangerous. Other hybrids appeared, surrounding Voren. He looked around at his creations, now turned against him. The Coalition will hear about this, he said coldly. I'll tell them you sabotage. We already told them. Minji's voice came over Taman's communicator. The jamming dropped when you freed the hybrids. I broadcast all the data to Coalition headquarters. Ships are on their way. Voren's face went pale. You've doomed us all. No, Una said. We've given them a chance, which is more than you ever did. They left Voren with the hybrids he'd created. Taman didn't know what they'd do with him, and he tried not to think about it. They reached the Dawn's Edge and launched, escaping just as Coalition warships arrived. The next 3 months were a blur. Testimonies, hearings, medical treatments. The conspiracy was exposed, with arrests made across multiple species. Voren and his allies were charged with crimes against galactic law. The freed hybrids became a challenge. Some couldn't survive without the control systems. Others adapted, learning to live with their modifications. The Coalition created special facilities to help them, and Taman volunteered to assist. Una recovered from her injuries with Velksari speed. She was assigned as permanent ambassador to the new human colony on Terra Nova, a joint project showing the Coalition's renewed commitment to cooperation. Taman was offered a position leading the Xenocultural Institute at the same colony, a place where different species could learn from each other safely. The dedication ceremony was huge. Ships from dozens of species attended. Taman stood on the platform in his formal clothes, more nervous about public speaking than he'd been about infiltrating the Nexus. Una stood beside him, also formal, looking beautiful in diplomatic attire that incorporated both Velksari and human design elements. When it was time to speak, Taman's mind went blank. He'd prepared a whole speech about cooperation and understanding. But looking out at the crowd, at all these different species gathered together, he forgot every word. I'm a scientist, he finally said. I study biology and genetics and how living things work. But this past year taught me something I couldn't learn from data. Strength doesn't come from perfect genetics or superior evolution. It comes from choosing to understand each other, from choosing to help instead of hurt, from choosing trust over fear. He paused, looking at Una. She smiled encouragement. Someone once told me that warriors are people willing to face danger for others. By that definition, everyone here is a warrior. Thank you for your courage. The crowd applauded. Taman stepped back, relieved it was over. Later, at the reception, Una found him hiding in a corner. You did well. I forgot half my speech. You said what mattered. She took his hand. Walk with me. They left the reception, moving through the new colony. Buildings were still being constructed, but already it looked like a place where different species could live together. Human architecture mixed with Velksari strength principles, mixed with designs from a dozen other cultures. Do you remember what I told you on the ship? Una asked. About Velksari choosing life mates? Yes. Taman's heart started beating faster. I chose you then. I choose you still. If you will have me. Taman stopped walking. He turned to face her fully. I should say something romantic, something meaningful. But all I can think is that your genetic structure and mine are compatible enough for pair bonding across species lines, and the probability of successful. Una laughed. That same wonderful laugh. Still analyzing. Sorry, I mean yes. I choose you too. However that works between humans and Velksari. I want to figure it out together. She kissed him. It was his first kiss with someone who wasn't human. It was different and familiar at the same time. Perfect in its imperfection. When they finally separated, Taman smiled. I should probably study the biochemical response to Taman, yes? Stop analyzing. Just feel. So he did. Above them, ships from across the galaxy flew in formation. Humans, Velksari, and countless others. Different species, different strengths, different worlds. But choosing to work together. Choosing to build something new. It wasn't perfect. There would be challenges ahead. Misunderstandings, conflicts, growing pains. But they would face them together. Because that's what strength really meant. Not the power to dominate or control. Not genetic perfection or superior weapons. But the courage to reach across differences and say, I trust you. I choose you. Let's build something better. And in that moment, watching the ships fly overhead with Yuna's hand in his,